Hey there. Welcome back to Nothing But Anime. It's time for part 9 of our What If Deku Had Powerful Weapon Quirk series. If you're having fun with the content, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more. Let's jump right in and see what happens next. Midterms were a few weeks later. Momo took the top spot in the class rankings, as expected, and Izuku was close behind in second. Katsuki took third, and Ida, now returned from his suspension, was in fourth. Todoroki had nearly frozen Aizawa-sensei to the podium when he heard that he was in fifth place. The teen's mood only continued to worsen during the following months. In every single exercise for foundational heroics, he would wordlessly unleash massive bursts of ice, caring little for collateral damage or his own teammates. It got to the point that All Might started pitting the entire class against Todoroki 19-1. The fact that the two-tone boy never succeeded with his strategy didn't help. His poor mood was beginning to leak into the academic classes, too. Even after the burn on his throat had long since healed, Todoroki wouldn't say a word in class. He didn't even resort to sign language. His grades were beginning to drop, which only served to make his attitude worse. In addition, every Monday, he would come into the classroom with a fresh bruise somewhere on his body. Arms, shoulders, chest, neck, cheeks, legs, anywhere. He never showed any outward signs of pain, but the bruises were on full display every time the boys changed into their costumes for heroics classes. And they weren't healing like they should have. As the semester exams approached, Todoroki's body had more bruises than it did healthy skin. Izuku was getting worried. Todoroki's clear dismissal of his health, both mental and physical, was concerning. Also concerning was the clear increase in Endeavor's temper. The hero was churning out more villain and civilian casualties than ever before, and the statistics were getting steadily worse day by day. The written half of the semester exams came and went in a blur. Soon enough, it was the day of the practical exam, and Class 1 filed into the parking lot to see the teachers standing in front of the buses. Ida raised his hand and asked, "Sensei, I was under the impression that we would be facing robots for our practical exam. Why are the teachers here?" Aizawa-sensei huffed. In previous years, those rumors would have been correct. However, due to your class' apparent inability to stay out of trouble, we're moving up the curriculum a bit. Principal Nedzu popped out of Aizawa-sensei's scarf and announced, "Instead, your opponents will be us teachers." Kaminari and Ishido went pale as Aizawa-sensei spoke up. "It's not as bad as it might sound. You'll be split into pairs, and each pair will face a different teacher. You'll have two methods to pass. Option 1, evade us and get through the exit gate of your testing location. Or Option 2, he held up a pair of handcuffs. Get this around one of our wrists." Fumikage hummed. Surely it would be folly to attempt to face such strong opponents head-on. Anything other than trying to escape would be tantamount to suicide. Aizawa-sensei grinned. "Normally you'd be correct. However, since you're just first years, we've decided to even the playing field a bit." He reached into his scarf and pulled out a thick bracelet lined with black bars. "We had the support department make us these super compressed weights for the exam. Each one adds about a quarter of our body weight, and since we'll be wearing several each, then direct engagement becomes a more viable option." Ida hummed. "So it is up to us to decide how we would handle the situation. Do we attempt to face our foe head-on, or do we attempt to escape when it becomes clear that our opponent is superior?" Aizawa-sensei nodded. "Exactly. A lesson that you have hopefully learned by now." Ida rubbed at his neck sheepishly. The hero continued, "In any case, pairs and matchups have been decided ahead of time. All exams will take place concurrently, so that everyone has the same amount of time to strategize." 13 raised her hand. "I will be facing Starlight Nova and Uravity." Aoyama smiled nervously, while Ochako grinned and slammed a fist into her palm. Nedzu chuckled. "I will go against Acid Queen and Charge Bolt." Both students turned pale at the same time. Ectoplasm cleared his throat. "I will face Froppy and Kurayami." Fumikage nodded at Tsu, who nodded back. Power Loader huffed. "I'll be up against Ignition and Karate Kong." Ida slipped his helmet on as Ojiro moved to stand with his partner. Cementos pointed his thumb at his chest. "My opponents will be Red Riot and Baker's Dozen." Kirishima grinned and banged his fists together, while Satu looked a little nervous. Present Mike struck a pose. "Anima and Jack Sabbath, prepare for the gnarliest mosh pit of your lives." Kyuka smirked and clanged her brass knuckles together, and her teammate mustered up a nervous smile. Snipe grunted. "I'll be handling Tentacle and Mirage." The large teen huffed as his partner bounced over. Midnight stroked her whip suggestively. "I'll be facing Cellophane and Hypnos. Do give me some fun, won't you?" Zero started sweating, but Hitoshi groaned and dragged a hand down his face. Eraserhead huffed. "Hyuga and Kriati, you're facing me." Todoroki said nothing as Momo nervously edged closer to her teammate. Izuku glanced over at Katsuki and raised an eyebrow. "Let me guess our opponent." He trailed off as a massive figure crashed to the pavement in front of them. All Might stood up from his crouch and placed a massive fist over his chest. "Is me." Izuku and Katsuki glanced at each other, before looking at the number 1 hero and grinning. Challenge accepted. Ochako checked over her gear as she and Aoyama stood at the entrance to their exam area. Glancing around the fake greenhouse, Ochako asked, I know we're not all that acquainted, but we'd better be aware of exactly what we can do if we're gonna pass this thing. Aoyama nodded. My naval laser is bright, but it is still physical. It would not hold up well under Professor 13's quirk. Shako hummed. That stinks. Wait, are those lenses in your heels? Aoyama smiled brightly. Indeed, mademoiselle. My costumes designer constructed my armor in a way that allows my quirk to operate from any lens on my person, including from my feet. Shako rubbed at her chin. I remember that your laser was strong enough to propel you through the air for the 50-meter dash. You think you could pull off something similar? Aoyama's eyes widened. Magnifique. My dear companion, perhaps I might even outpace our opponent's black hole. Ochako smirked, before placing her hand on her chin. Now, what I can do against her is largely based on how her quirk functions. If it's a strong gravitational force like the name suggests, then I might be able to make myself immune to it via my own quirk. However, if it's just a super strong wind that pulls stuff in, then I'm out of luck. Aoyama hummed. While they are playing the part of villains, they are still our teachers, non? Surely, they would not harm us too badly for what is, in essence, a simple exercise. Ochako smacked a fist into her palm. You're right. So, if we manage to get in close, then 13-sensei won't use her quirk, since it would hurt us too badly at that range. She slipped her visor over her head, grinning as the HUD flickered on. Aoyama-kun, you're amazing. The French blonde blushed. Non, I am not amazing. I am simply observant. Shako huffed. Don't make me send you to Rumi for a no-negativity internship. You're going to appreciate your talents if I have anything to say about it. She turned her attention to the ticking clock above the start gate. But right now, we've got bigger fish to fry. Are you ready? Aoyama smiled, striking a pose. Of course, mademoiselle. The countdown hit 0, and the loudspeakers blared. Exam start. Denki fiddled with his copper gauntlets as the clock above the entrance gate ticked down. So, what's the plan? Ashido glanced at him with panic in her eyes. Don't die, mainly. I couldn't think of anything beyond that. I mean, we're up against the smartest hero in all of Japan here. There's no way we can outthink him. Denki hummed, scanning the abandoned warehouses and pipes around them. Maybe not long-term, but there's something to be said for thinking on your feet. Ashido groaned. I can barely think on or off my feet. We're doomed. Denki grabbed her by the shoulders and looked her in the eyes. Hey, calm down. It's just an exam. Okay? This isn't a life or death situation. We're not gonna die if we fail. Ashido sniffed. How are you so calm? Denki released her and glanced around the area. Right now, I'm thinking about this like a video game. At the moment, it's a stealth mission, trying to avoid the enemy's sightlines. But it can turn into a live combat encounter at any moment. Though, knowing the principle, it's more likely to be a quick-time event with environmental hazards. Ashido snapped her fingers. That makes a lot of sense. Why didn't you lead with that? He raised an eyebrow at her. Didn't take you for the kind of person who played video games. You strike me as more of DDR than MGR. Ashido huffed. Ijiru got into video games during middle school, and it seemed like another way to keep up my flexibility. I never got very far into them, but I know the basics. Denki grinned. All right then. Mission start. The countdown hit 0, and the loudspeakers blared. Exam start. Denki shrugged. Same thing. Fumikage rifled through his various pockets and pouches, making sure that everything was in place. He glanced at the hallway ahead of them, humming to himself. You looked over the map, correct? What do we need to be wary of? Su hummed. There's 2 open cylindrical areas, Karo. Each one has multiple floors, and there are various hallways on each floor connecting them. This hallway leads to the first floor of one of the areas. Karo. The exit is on the first floor of the other area. Fumikage grunted and flicked open one of his belt pouches. And is the entire area enclosed? Su nodded. No windows, only 2 exits. Everything's lit, and I don't think 1 EMP will cut it, Karo. Fumikage chuckled and reached into the pouch, pulling out a stack of discs and spreading them out like a hand of cards. Then it's a good thing I have more than 1 EMP, no? Su grinned. Wasn't expecting that, Karo. And if I didn't, then there's a good chance that Ectoplasm-sensei won't either. Fumikage nodded and tucked the EMPs back into their assigned pouch, snapping it shut and covering himself with his cloak. That is the general idea. Tenya rubbed at his right arm as the clock ticked down, feeling it ache from the injury he'd received in Hosu during internships. His partner glanced over at him. Your arm acting up or something? Tenya sighed and crossed his arms. An old injury, and a reminder of my foolishness. But we must focus on the task ahead. Ojiro nodded and turned to scan the seemingly empty dirt field ahead. 100 yen says that the place is going to be filled with traps and pitfalls within seconds of the exam starting. Tenya huffed. Gambling on school grounds is prohibited, but yes, that is the most likely scenario. Ojiro snorted, before schooling his expression. Okay, I know you're pretty fast, but Power Loader does too, so he'll probably set the first trap right in front of the exit gate. And he's already there, so we can't count on being faster than him. Ideas? Tenya hummed to himself. You often use your tail to propel yourself forward. Yes? Do you think you could accomplish something similar for 2 people at the same time? Ojiro grunted. I think so. My tail's a lot stronger than my arms and legs. I mean, you've seen me use the thing as a chair. Tenya nodded. Good. Then I have a plan. However, this will rely on your reaction time. How quickly can you hit the ground with your tail after I give the signal? Ojiro smirked. I live at a dojo. I'm pretty sure my body is hardwired to respond within a second of someone barking out an order. Tenya smiled underneath his helmet. Then we have a chance to get through the exit gate shortly after the exam begins. Do you trust me? Ojiro chuckled and held out a hand. Of course. Izuku slammed his fists together, producing a shower of sparks. You ready for this, bro? Satu nodded eagerly. You bet. I'm stocked up on sugar, and I'm raring to go. Izuku grinned, feeling his quirk spread across his legs. Then let's do this. The countdown hit 0, and the loudspeakers blared. Exam start. Kyuka twirled one of her jacks around her finger, staring around at the forest that made up their exam site. I'm not hearing a lot of animals in here, and I doubt your rat army will hear you all the way over in ground beta. What's your stance on insects? Kuda whimpered and signed. I don't like talking to bugs. They used to come out whenever I used my quirk, and the other kids didn't like that. The only kid who didn't run when the bugs came ended up being a bully who would prey on kids with entomophobia, and they wanted me to be their partner in crime. Kyuka scowled. Scumbag. So, you try not to talk to bugs because you're afraid you'll turn out like that creep. Kuda nodded. Logically, I know that I won't, but I can't stop myself from being nervous. Kyuka sighed warmly and laid a hand on her partner's shoulder. It's okay to be nervous. Hell, I was nervous the first time I went on patrol during my internship. We've all got something that we're scared of, but what makes you a hero is standing up to that fear and conquering it. Right? Kuda nodded, his expression becoming determined. You're right. I can do this. Kyuka grinned and plugged her jacks into her glove speakers, letting out a brief pulse to check that they were functional. Let's get this party started. Hitoshi fidgeted with the mask hanging by his neck, glancing over at his partner. So, does that mask actually block out stuff? Or is it just for show? Ciro winced and rubbed at his neck. Technically, it does protect me from stuff like gas, but the problem is that it doesn't actually have an air filter, meaning it can't stay closed for too long or I'll suffocate. I'm realizing how stupid that is now that you bring it up, and I'm definitely going to talk to my costume designer after this exam. Hitoshi grunted. So long as you're aware of the problem. Now, I know this is going to sound invasive, but I swear it's important. What's your sexuality? Ciro blushed furiously. Why do you need to know that? Hitoshi sighed. Because of Midnight's quirk. Its potency varies depending on the target's level of infatuation with her. For instance, I am very gay, so it's not very effective. Ciro's blush faded. Oh, how effective is it against asexuals? Hitoshi rubbed at his chin. Well, I think you've got the same level of resistance as me, since neither of us are all that into women. Of course, nobody is entirely immune to it, but it does mean that it'll take either a very high concentration or prolonged exposure to make us fall asleep. So we've got to move fast and hit hard if we want to win before we pass out. Got it. Ciro grinned. I like to think I'm pretty good at moving fast. To know about hitting hard, though. Hitoshi hummed. I might have a few tricks that I can teach you. His capture scarf snapped out and wrapped around a decently sized rock sitting nearby. Ever heard of flails? Izuku mentally rifled through his inventory as they walked towards the entrance to ground beta. So, what's the plan? Katsuki grunted as he snapped the handles of his gauntlets into place. If it were anyone but All Might, I'd say that the plan was to go in, blast their ass and slap the handcuffs on them. But considering who we're facing, I think a more detailed strategy is in order. Izuku huffed. Damn right it is. We can't take down the #1 hero with brute force. Any ideas? Katsuki rubbed at his chin. Well, he doesn't seem to wear any kind of eye or ear protection, which means he's pretty vulnerable to my stun grenade. Unfortunately, a single flashbang probably won't weaken him enough to get the handcuffs on him. And he's way too fast for us to even consider escaping. And yes, that's taking your extreme gear into account. Izuku snapped his fingers. Damn. I don't think I have anything non-lethal that can remotely close the gap in raw power. Katsuki rubbed at one of his gauntlets. And since the tanks funnel into 3 barrels each, then a blast from one of these won't be enough to do more than stall him. Izuku then noticed something he had in his inventory, and he grinned. Hey, you know what we have that All Might doesn't? Katsuki glanced at him curiously. Range. Katsuki's eyes widened. True. His best ranged attack is Texas Smash, and that drops off quickly at longer ranges. You're not using a sniper rifle, are you? Izuku smirked. Nah, something better. He pulled off his headphones and draped them around his neck, securing them to the clip on the back of his collar. His hair glowed, and the balls of light coalesced into a light blue astronaut helmet on his head, 2 cylindrical tanks on his back, and a futuristic-looking pistol in his hand. Katsuki's eyes widened, and he grinned. So, the plan is that I distract him while you build up a charged shot? Izuku nodded with a grin. And if anything goes wrong, we improvise. Katsuki snorted. You mean pull something out of our asses? Izuku shrugged. Same thing. Chapter 28. Momo frowned as Todoroki stared ahead at the fake suburb, his arms crossed and his expression cold. Todoroki-kun, we have to strategize. Her partner huffed. Stay here. You'll only hold me back, anyway. Momo scowled. That's not how this works. We were placed in pairs for a reason, Todoroki-kun. Teamwork is necessary if we want to pass. Todoroki didn't move an inch. I will handle this on my own. Momo reached a hand forward when the loudspeakers blared. In an instant, Todoroki was wrapped in Aizawa-sensei's capture scarf, the man's eyes already glowing red behind his goggles. Naive. Dismissing your partner so quickly will only get you killed out in the field. Todoroki glared at the teacher, helpless without his quirk. Momo darted forward, slipping her collapsible staff from her belt and swinging at Aizawa-sensei's knees. The hero jumped over the attack and knocked her away with a roundhouse kick, sending her stumbling into the side of a building. Aizawa-sensei slung Todoroki over a stoplight and cut off the section of the scarf holding the teen hostage, tying it to a telephone pole. Todoroki growled, "This won't hold me. I'll just freeze it the second you take your eyes off me." Aizawa-sensei huffed, reaching into one of his belt pouches and scattering a bunch of caltrops onto the street underneath where Todoroki hung. "For your sake, I wouldn't recommend it." He crossed his arms and looked at Momo. "Since your partner's insistence on working alone wasn't your fault, I'll give you another chance. I will go back to the exit gate. You'll have 5 minutes. He glared up at Todoroki. "If you insist on leaving your teammate behind again, you fail. No questions asked. Am I clear?" Todoroki scowled and looked away, staring off into the distance. Momo sighed and bowed to the hero. "I will try my best, but I make no promises." Aizawa-sensei grunted. "Remember 5 minutes. After that, the exam is on for real." The hero disappeared over the rooftops, and Momo used her staff to sweep away the caltrops covering the street. The moment that the ground underneath Todoroki was cleared, ice spread along the section of the capture scarf, and the teen dropped to the ground as the fabric shattered. He immediately took a step in the direction of the exit gate, only to pause when Momo grabbed his shoulder. "Are you deaf?" He said that refusing to work together would be an automatic failure. Todoroki yanked his shoulder out of her grip and turned to face her with a scowl on his face. "I don't need you tagging along. You're nothing but a hindrance." Momo felt something inside her shatter. "Hindrance? Hindrance? Todoroki-kun, are you even listening to yourself? You claim that you don't want to be like Endeavor, and yet here you are using one of his most common tactics." Todoroki's expression darkened. "Don't compare me to him. I'm nothing like him. I'll never be like him." Momo crossed her arms and scoffed. "Nothing like him? Really? Take a good look at yourself, Hyuga. Maybe you'll finally see how foolish you're being right now." Her senses tingled, and she created a shield within a fraction of a second. Just in time, too, because without warning, ice burst out in every direction, ramming into her and destroying the surrounding area. She was shoved against the outer wall of the testing site, crying out as her back slammed against the concrete border. Mentally, she thanked Hatsum for revising her costume, as her lower spine likely would have shattered if the bookshelf had still been there. Todoroki walked forward, frost flowing off of his right side. "Rescind your accusations, and I will let you watch me pass this exam by myself." Momo coughed, surprised by the blood that splattered on the ice holding her against the wall. "By yourself? Don't make me laugh. You probably just failed by attacking your partner." Todoroki's scowl deepened. "Attacking my partner? Please, I was getting rid of dead weight. I was removing the obstacle that was holding me back." Momo scoffed. "The only thing holding you back is yourself, Hyuga. Refusing to use the other half of your quirk will only hurt you." Todoroki growled, and several spikes of ice rose from the ground by his right foot. "You will not speak ill of my mother's ice. I have sworn an oath to surpass all might without using Endeavor's fire." Momo huffed, looking her classmate in the eyes. "If you believe that you can be a hero while casting aside half of your quirk, you're wrong. Only using your ice won't be enough." Apparently, that was the wrong thing to say. Todoroki's eyes burned with a cold fire, as more ice spread across her body. The teen snarled, "Of course it's not enough. It's never enough for anyone. Is it? Shudo, stop this childish rebellion. Shudo, use the fire I gave you. Shudo, get better." He's never satisfied, always demanding that I be better, that I improve, that I grow up. And if everyone else is going to be the same. A spike of ice formed on the ground. "Then I'll just be the only one left standing." The spike rushed forward, and then Momo saw nothing but darkness. Ochako sighed with relief as Aoyama managed to secure the handcuffs around 13's wrist. "Good work, Nova." Suddenly, alarms started blaring around the area, and 13's head shot up. No, it couldn't be. But who? Ochako felt something settle into the pit of her stomach. "Sensei? What's going on?" Nedzu installed this particular alarm system to alert the school should a student attack a peer or a teacher, but I never thought it'd ever be used. Denki laughed with relief as he and Ishido dove through the exit gate. Mission complete. Suddenly, alarms started blaring, and he winced and covered his ears. His partner shouted, "What's happening?" Nedzu appeared next to them, eyes wide open. No, these alarms could only mean one thing. The worst of events have come to pass. Dark Shadow winced and clutched at their head as alarms started blaring and flashing red lights illuminated the atrium they were in. "Make it stop, Fumi. Make it stop." Fumikage frowned. "Did my EMPs trigger the alarms somehow?" Ectoplasm shook his head, the giant clone dissipating. No, this was caused by another student. These alarms are the violent student warning system, activated if a student attacks another person on school grounds. This particular sequence indicates that it was a hero student. Sue's camouflage fizzled out, showing her crouched next to the gate. She placed a finger under her mouth, glancing around with a worried expression. This can't be good, Caro. Tenya shot up, glancing around the break room as the alarm started blaring. The violent student warning system. But why? Who? Ojiro whipped his head around to stare at his classmate. You know about this? Tenya nodded, his eyebrows furrowed in concern. Tensei told me that UA has an additional alarm system that activates if a student attacks another student unprovoked on school grounds. Power Loader swore under his breath, walking back over to his mech suit. You two stay here. This sequence means that it was triggered by a hero student. Tenya went pale. No, he couldn't have. Izuku paused as the sound of alarms filled the residential area. Bro? What's going on? Sata paused, still under the effects of his quirk. Dunno. Sounds bad. The cement walls in front of them suddenly slid into the ground, and Cementos came flying over on a wave of liquid concrete. You two stay here. A hero student has attacked someone unprovoked. Stay back and let the teachers handle this. Izuku felt a chill run down his spine. This can't end well. Kyuka jerked her head up and held a hand out, causing Kuda to stop in his tracks. The boy quickly signed. What? Alarms are going off around the perimeter. They're not the usual security breach alarms, something different. I haven't heard these before. Present Mike burst out of the tree line, his expression serious. You two, come with me. We need to get back to the main campus SAP. As they ran towards the exit gate, Kyuka managed to ask, What's going on, Sensei? This is the violent student warning system. I've only heard it activate once before. Back when I was a hero student and one of my classmates used his quirk on a gen ed kid. These specific alarms mean that someone in the hero course attacked another student or teacher unprovoked. Hitoshi swore under his breath as alarms echoed throughout the rocky field. Shit, somebody tripped the violent student warning system. Zero scratched at his head in confusion. The what now? It's a separate alarm system from the intruder alerts. The VSWS triggers whenever a student attacks another student or a teacher without permission. That's why you didn't hear it during the battle trials or the sports festival. Dad and Pops told me about it after I was accepted into Gen Ed. Midnight sat up and shook her head vigorously. Crap, a hero student triggered it this time. You two, stay here and let the teachers handle whatever happened. Izuku went pale as alarms started blaring throughout ground beta. Shit, Katsuki, forget the exam. Something happened that I thought would happen, but prayed that it wouldn't. Katsuki glanced around, hands curled into claws. What? All Might landed on the street in front of them, his trademark smile noticeably absent. Young Midoriya, you know what is happening? Izuku nodded, glancing in the direction that he had seen the other bus go. Yeah, I do. Todoroki snapped. Shoyuta swore under his breath as he parkoured over the rooftops of the exam site, heading towards the massive spire of ice in the distance. The sudden glacier was worrying, but not nearly as worrying as the red stain that was focused towards the tip and grew lighter near the base. What the hell happened? As he got closer, he noticed that the buildings near where he'd restrained Todoroki were utterly demolished by ice. The pit in his stomach only grew, and he hit the quick-release switch on his weights, letting them drop to the ground as he shot forward. In only a few seconds, he reached the border of the exam site, and what he saw made him go pale. Todoroki was standing with his back to the hero, his attention solely focused on the tableau in front of him. The tall spire of ice, originating from the ground at the teen's feet. The spire that had impaled Yaoyorozu through the stomach, pinning her to the concrete wall behind her. Her breathing was slow, labored. She was still alive, but only barely hanging on. Slowly, Todoroki turned to face Shoyuta, and the hero inhaled sharply at the cold look in the student's eyes. Ah, sensei, I suppose I shouldn't be too surprised. I wasn't exactly subtle. Todoroki, what the hell are you doing? The student tilted his head curiously, almost callously. What do you mean, sensei? I'm simply removing the obstacles in my path. Now that the dead weight is out of the way, I can finally pass this exam. Shuta's eyes narrowed, and his capture scarf began to unravel from his neck. Stand down. I don't want to fight you. Todoroki scoffed, ice spreading across the ground from his feet. Of course you do. That's the entire point of this exam, is it not? The point was to help you overcome your weaknesses, not whatever the hell this is. Todoroki huffed, frost covering his arm. But I did overcome my weakness, sensei. My weakness is now pinned to the wall, unable to get in my way like she kept trying to do from the beginning. Shuta's quirk flared, and the frost vanished from Todoroki's arm. Don't make me do this, Todoroki. Get your partner down from the ice. Take her to Recovery Girl, and maybe I won't expel you. Todoroki scoffed. Didn't you hear me, sensei? I don't have a partner. You saddled me with dead weight, expecting me to overcome you with this useless girl hanging off my back. Well, I found a way around the handicap. Shouldn't you be proud of me? Or am I still not good enough for you? There was a green blur, and a tornado of fire burst to life at the base of the spire. The ice melted, and Midoriya grabbed Yaoyorozu from the wall, staring at Todoroki from behind a wooden hog mask. You know, dude, if you were having issues with your asshole dad, you could have just vented to us instead of half-killing your partner. Todoroki rolled his eyes. Is everyone deaf? I don't need partners. They're nothing but dead weight. Shoyuta ordered. Midoriya, get Yaoyorozu to the nurse's office. You've only got a couple minutes at most. Midoriya nodded, and his hoverboard roared to life. The two students sped off towards the main campus, and Shoyuta focused his attention completely on Todoroki. The team merely huffed. Who cares what happens to her? She'd only be a hindrance in the field, barking orders at people more capable than her. If she dies, it's one less burden. Shoyuta snarled. She was your ally, your backup. Todoroki scoffed. Allies? In the real world, there are no allies. There is only me, and the villain that I am facing. That is all that matters. There was a rush of wind, forcing the hero to blink, and All Might was suddenly standing between Shoyuta and Todoroki. Todoroki shouted, stop this now, before anyone else gets hurt. The teen snorted. That's rich. You of all people should know people always get hurt. But you wouldn't care about that, would you? So long as you don't get hurt, everything's all hunky-dory. Isn't it? Well, newsflash, number one bastard. It's not. People get hurt and die every day, and yet you keep on smiling as though it doesn't matter. As though your sheer presence makes all that death and suffering worthless. Symbol of peace, my ass. You're just a bringer of endless violence. Faster than Shoyuta could react, a spike of ice rushed up from the ground, slicing open All Might's right side. The hero coughed up blood and fell to his knee. Shoyuta whipped his capture scarf out, only for it to be caught in a block of ice that shot up from the ground and wrapped around it. Todoroki tilted his head curiously at Shoyuta, before turning his attention back to All Might. Now do you understand? That's pain. That's what people deal with every day of their lives. That's what makes us human. How does it feel to be human, oh great and powerful symbol of peace? All Might coughed again and rose to his feet, hand clutched against his side. You misunderstand, Todoroki shouted. I live in pain every day. My smile is just a means of hiding it. Todoroki scoffed in disbelief. You lie. Everyone lies, some more than others. And heroes? Heroes are the biggest liars of all. Always claiming that they defend the peace, when they cause the most violence out of everyone. You, best genist. Hawks. Endeavor. Oh, the things I could say about Endeavor. But not today. No, I think that conversation deserves a larger audience. Ice burst out in all directions, and a concrete panel rose out of the ground in front of All Might, protecting the two heroes from the attack. As soon as the ice stopped growing, Shoyuta swarmed up the side and looked down into the center, only to find it empty. Shit. Part 9 is officially complete. Thank you all for your incredible patience and support as we continue this journey together. If you haven't already, make sure to check out the previous parts in the playlist to catch up on all the action. Each chapter builds on the last, and trust me, you won't want to miss any of it. A huge shout out to the author for their immense talent and dedication in bringing this story to life. Let's show our appreciation by supporting them however we can. Whether that's through a follow, a share, or leaving a comment with your thoughts. Their hard work truly deserves it. I'll be back with more soon. So stay tuned. Your ongoing support means the world, and I'm so grateful for each and every one of you. Until next time, take care and keep the love going strong.